Hello and welcome to episode 162 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now joining me on today's episode is the return of one of my favourite film directors, the absolute genius Neill Blomkamp. But not only that, he's come along and brought the leading star of the film Demonic, the incredible actress Carly Pope. Both of these are absolutely fantastic from the moment we start talking. It's one of my favourite interviews that I've ever done in 5 years, and I can't wait to share it with you in just a few moments' time. But, like I do on the intro of all episodes of Mark and Me, I do want to touch base and talk about my last episode. I was joined by the amazing actress Jo Hartley. I could never have predicted the response that came from this episode. It's been one of my most downloaded episodes. I've had more emails and DMs and private messages from listeners than I've ever had on Mark and Me. It's been insane. And also behind the scenes, it's led to a hell of a lot more people getting in contact and helping me secure loads more interviews in the near future. It's been massive. I've been talking to Jo quite a lot over the last week and we've been blown away by the response. And the good news is, Jo is going to return for another face-to-face, longer episode in the very near future. But let's get back to today's episode. Only 2 guests have ever come on Mark and Me 3 times. Dustin from Thrice and now Neill Blomkamp. And I really do hope that Carly Pope returns because this episode is fantastic and she is absolutely incredible from start to finish. So I think the best thing to do right now is to get straight to it. So here's me, Neill and Carly talking all things demonic. So Carly and Neill, thanks for joining me today on the Mark and Me podcast.
Thank you.
A lot of the listeners out there have heard me and Neill talking now a couple of times, but Carly, for you, what it was at the very start that made you want to get into acting? Was there a certain film? Was there something at school? What was it that made you want to become an actress?
To be perfectly honest, I think my older brother and I, it was just the 2 of us at the time. We have a younger brother now, but at the time when I was, quite small, my older brother and I would spend a lot of time watching and rewatching movies. And I think for me, it was sort of coupled. We both had, various run-ins with health and whatnot. So we were home a lot and we were, in and out of various states of infirm. So we watched a lot of film to kind of, pass the time. And I think it was so enjoyable. It was such like a state of levity for both of us that I just really became quite enamored with like the medium in and of itself. As for acting for me, it wasn't really on my radar, to be honest. I enjoyed film. I enjoyed TV as a medium to watch as a viewer, but I wasn't thinking about it in any capacity as a career. And something happened when I was in high school. We had a specified drama program at my high school. And, in the earlier grades, like grade 8 and grade 9, you just sort of did improvisation. And that was definitely not my forte. And it was not in my,
seems like you'd be good at improv. Don't we? I guess we didn't really improv much on this, but it seems like you would be.
Is that because I talk a lot of shit, Neill? But it just, I don't know what it was. It just like, for me, I just felt very on the spot and it was very intimidating for me. But then once I started getting into like older grades, we started to do a lot more scene work. And that was really quite, stimulating to me. Yeah. Like I really, really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed the process of breaking down a scene and figuring out how to make it work, especially with other, with your co-actors in a scene.
Which school was that in Vancouver?
It was Lord Byng Secondary School. So they had like a dedicated theater program. And then so the theater program is for grades 11 and 12. And I auditioned for it after I started doing the scene work in grade 10. I auditioned for the theater company and I got in, and that was sort of like, 2 years of dedicated theater work and training. And I think I ended up taking another block of theater and did some like directing for younger grades. And I just really enjoyed that immersive experience. So I sort of got bit by the bug there, but I still wasn't thinking about it in any way, shape, or form other than as a hobby. And my agent, who's still my agent to this day in Vancouver, came to one of our productions, and he asked my teachers after the show if I would be interested in representation. So they sort of like took me aside and asked me if I would be interested. And I was like, I don't know, maybe. And I went in and met with him and, had a little read of a scene. And he's like, well, you're a bit big, but, but we can work on that.
What
and
did he
like,
mean? Like a bit broad?
Like a bit broad, like a bit theatrical, like a little bit like, like just simmer down, Carly, I think is what really the tag was for that meeting. But he started representing me, I think, around my last year of high school. So around in grade 12. And, it was very slow going. I had a few little jobs here and there. It was really after I graduated, I'd started university at the University of British Columbia. And I ended up testing for a show in Los Angeles that sort of started this very fast, furious, and like designated ball rolling into what is now my career. And I really didn't, again, I was sort of, in university going.
What were you studying?
I was studying English, theater history, and psychology. And I wasn't sure where I was. The reason why I was taking such few credits at the time was because I didn't know where I wanted to go. I just wanted to try a couple things out. But I had a feeling I would land in the kind of like humanities or like social justice kind of world of it all. And then I ended up booking a series that was shooting in Los Angeles. So I withdrew from school and followed that breadcrumb, which was all sorts of terrifying. And I really wasn't sure about any of it, but I had a lot of people around me kind of urging me to follow that lead. And so at 18, I moved to LA, and Bob's not my uncle, but he might be your uncle. I don't know.
Was your family supportive? Were your parents and everyone around you saying, go and do this? Or was it because when I wanted to be an actor, I wanted to be a musician, my parents were kind of like, you can do that, but you need to get a proper job first, and then you can hopefully do that if it's a dream come true for you? Or were they completely behind you?
They were, I think my parents certainly, and my brothers and the people around me that were mentors and friends at the time, they were all really, really supportive of it. They were 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead of where I was. I was very reluctant. I was really shy and really scared, and also very indignant. Like I was really sort of in that angsty late teen phase of going like, I want to do what I want to do. I don't know what that is yet, but like, let me figure it out. And so I think it was quite amazing because I have heard many stories like, so, that parents, kind of want you to follow a more traditional path in order to then figure out what you want to do. And my parents sort of took a different approach and just recognized that this was an opportunity that probably doesn't come around very often. It really did happen out of nowhere. It was sort of incredible that way. And so, they certainly were very supportive, but also very much urging me to not squander an opportunity that was in front of me.
That's good. I mean, it might be one of those fears where they're like, Mum, Dad, I'm 18, I'm going off, I'm going to become a big actress. And they must be like, oh my God, like, can you do business school as well? Or can you do something else just in case to fall back? But the fact you had those kind of humanities and the other stuff to go with it was great. But the fact it must have happened so quickly that I suppose they started to see some evidence that it wasn't just a dream, there was some reality to it.
Yeah, indeed, it did happen quickly. And I think that I think that there was probably a silver lining that I had a job that I was already hired for. That probably helped a lot.
That's the unique, like that's actually the super unusual, unique part of it.
Yeah.
Normally it's I want to go to LA and be an actress. And then the parents are trying to make sure that you get something that's more stable initially. But in this situation, it's like they asked you to go down to LA and you weren't thinking about it. It's like, yeah, there's a lot more of a reason to do it then.
Yeah, it was definitely a perpendicular approach to a career. That's for sure. But it was, I do feel very grateful that my parents sort of didn't let up and did sort of guide me. I was to be perfectly honest, like tooth and nail wanting to run away from the opportunity, because I didn't feel ready, or I didn't feel like I had made that decision. Like you're saying, Neill, like that decision to be like, I want to follow my dreams. And it was part of my, extracurricular outlet. I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't like my dream to be an actor. Yeah. So it was certainly a strange happenstance, but I don't regret any of it. It's been a wild ride. And now it's just trying to figure out like how to, sustain the ebbs and flows and all the rest that comes with it.
And one thing that I was kind of very curious by, and I can do some research, but I prefer just to find out on the actual day and speak to people firsthand, how you both came into each other's lives. So Neill, can you remember the first time you discovered Carly's work or saw something, or maybe it was the first audition? I'm not sure if it was a show or something. How can you remember being introduced to Carly?
I think, it was on Elysium, and I don't remember whether I have like a terrible memory, I should say. Let me just start off by saying I have the worst memory in the world. But I don't remember whether it was that I saw Carly's audition and then I showed my wife, or whether Terry, my wife, said, you should check out Carly, because she was really into Popular, which is the show I think Carly's referring to. Is that why you went down to LA?
Yes, that's yeah.
I love the link there. That's nicely done.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's that, and then I met her on Elysium, and then years later, when my brother and I were setting up Oat Studios, we were trying to figure out, it's ironic that she lives in LA, because we were trying to figure out like actors that were within the vicinity of greater Vancouver that could be, everything that we were trying to do was to have this recurring kind of feeling to the pieces we were making, and that we could call on people that would be around to, continuously, like Cooking with Bill could have 100 episodes, for example. So when the casting agents in Vancouver started giving us stuff, I saw Carly and then instantly was like, okay, that's awesome. We can use her for a whole bunch of stuff. And then I got to know her a lot more than I did on Elysium, and Raka and Cooking with Bill led to Adam, and then actually this entire movie, which is this very unusual way that it was made, where I knew a couple of the core actors prior to writing. So I said to Carly, I want to shoot some sort of Paranormal Activity style movie like later this year. Are you theoretically around? I think I sent you an email saying that, right?
You did.
Yeah. And then so the script, I'm not sure if anything existed. And then a few months went by, and then I sent her a first draft of the script. But I knew that she had the talent, and she had the right sort of camaraderie mentality for how a lower budget film would be shot. And she had gone through the Oates Film School, which was basically the same way we made Demonic. It was just a feature film length version.
Yeah.
So, that's basically, but I would say on Oates is really where, I got a much clearer idea of the capacity for what she can do and the breadth of talent and everything else.
You're sitting here now like, oh, thank you. And Carly, obviously, were you when you first did Elysium, did you go back and see stuff like District 9 and then get an idea for Neill's work, or were you already a fan? Were you on board? I know I'm putting you on the spot. You might turn around and go, I've never heard of him until that point, but I'm sure you.
Yeah, imagine that. No, I had gone to I didn't go to the, I thought I went to the premiere. I didn't go to the premiere of District 9, but I saw District 9 like right away when it came out. And actually with my now husband. That was one of the first movies we watched together, which is
in LA.
In LA, yeah. And I was, I mean, again, I know I'm not alone when I say this. Like, I was so blown away by the film, by the vision. I felt so deeply for the prawns. I was like, how is this happening? This is insane. But it was such a unique and, to me, really game-changing film. It really kind of subverted a lot of filmmaking, and it was so brilliant. And so I already knew who Neill was, of course, from that film. And then when the Elysium audition came up, I was actually shooting a film in Vancouver at the time, and this audition came up, and the material for the audition was like sort of a mashup of all of the CCB agents that were in in Jodie Foster's world on the ship. And so it was probably like an 8-page audition or something bananas that like was just talk. So it was all of the CCB agents material like mashed up into one for the audition purposes. And I was looking at it going, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this, because I was working every day on this film. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to.
It seems like a ridiculous costing requirement as well. I should go back and like revisit how that happens. That doesn't make sense.
But here's what I will say is that Candice Elzinga, who cast that film, is somebody that I've known since I started in Vancouver. And she was so beautiful and so lovely and so patient. And I'd gone out to get a suit, like a pantsuit in Vancouver, because I was up there shooting, and it was summertime. I had summer clothes with me. I didn't have anything that looked bossy or official or like appropriate for an Elysium set world. So I went out to get a suit, and I remember going to the audition, and I was like sweating. It was so hot out that day, and I had these 8 pages, and I just kept running them over my brain. And Candice was so patient with me, and she just sort of said, let's just take our time. Let's just get through this and let's do it. So I know this is, a bastardization of your question, but basically, I knew when the audition came in that I knew who Neill was. I knew I wanted to go in for it. I didn't know how I was going to make it happen, because I really was struggling to keep the words for the film in my brain that I was currently shooting. So but I knew that I couldn't pass up this opportunity. So yes, I did know who Neill was. I did very much want to be a part of the Elysium world. There was 0 script to be read. Of course, it was just these sides that were all mashed up together. And then when I got the call that I was cast, I remember going to the production office and signing an NDA and sitting in the production office reading the script for 2 hours.
Was it at the Bridge?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the Bridge. Yeah. And then, and reading it and then being like, okay, well, that's what we're doing. And I don't think I really met you, Neill, until quite late in the process, because it was just, again, there were so many people, it was such a huge, it just felt like a huge set. I feel like, everyone was on walkies, like receiving information from, football fields down the way. It was very big.
But I mean, this even from Demonic, regardless of if we had 4 people on Demonic, I always have to have a radio. Right? It doesn't matter. I need a radio. So, and that's also the first thing that you go to the first AD and just flip out if where is the radio? Because I feel like I'm not in communication with people then. So, right. But you are right. It was more, I think the thing that was more the vibe of Elysium was the little earpieces that everybody was wearing. So it had more of a surgical strike kind of feel to it.
For sure. Yeah. Very clinical.
Yeah.
And then, when we got into the oats stuff, it was like, it was just like melee. It was just like fun insanity.
Mm-hmm.
But
Which is exactly how it should be.
Yeah, was that quite a contrast to flip from the big studio with everyone on walkie-talkies? Don't get me wrong, I'm sure, Neil, at any opportunity on Oats, you'd still have your little walkie-talkie again and stuff. But was it? Yeah. Have you got one at home? Are you like, wife, would you like?
No, it's the AD department's job, right? Like, so they'll have these banks of radios that are charged at night. Yeah. And you usually it'll have like a sort of duct tape across it with a number.
Yeah.
And then it'll get assigned to, like, mine will be like number 4 or whatever the number is. So each morning, maybe the second AD will come up to me and give me one, or the first AD will give me one, and it's the same radio, and it's always in my hand. And then I feel like I can instantly start asking questions. So it doesn't matter whether it's Oats or it's Elysium. Like, you need to have that. And there's very few things on set that really just tweak my brain. Like, I'm pretty mellow, but like, one of them is if I don't have a radio, it'll set off like a meltdown, like a chain reaction.
Someone's like, sorry, Neil, I forgot to charge them last night. Like, oh my God.
Yeah. If that happens, it's not good.
Mark, I think you're onto something, though. I think that maybe that would be a good gift for you and Terry, Neil.
Yeah.
Like a set of walkie-talkies. Yeah.
Oh, I think I have some, actually, because she's out in the barn sometimes.
Do you want a cup of tea,
exactly.
babe? Yeah. Yeah, milk, sugar, in a minute.
Yeah.
So, Carly, when you got involved in Oats, because this is some, for me, I'm not just saying it because Neil's here, is the finest work I've seen from a studio. I absolutely loved it. And, each week seeing it on YouTube and getting the opportunity to own it on Blu-ray and everything was just magical. And to be involved in Racco and everything else, was it a completely different feeling? Did it feel like being as part of a family because of the scale of it, instead of it being this absolute stupidly big, huge studio where everyone in the world's involved and all these, different people? Did it feel more homegrown and organic and like a different feel of being involved? Was it less intimidating, or was it more because you were under the spotlight more?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, like, Neil really sets a tone of what he wants, for his sets, which really is like the type of environment that I want to work in as well, which, is just creative and copacetic and zero nonsense.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole lot of nonsense, but it's not from it's not from it's not from bad apples on set. Like, there's a very tight ship, and it's a very great environment to work in as a result. And I think that I think that just the inception of Oats, of wanting to create a landscape of less cooks in the kitchen, and as a result, newer recipes, to keep that analogy going. But like, I feel like that in and of itself is just so inspiring to be around, because you just can play and try and experiment and create, and there is not as much pressure because you don't have executives breathing down your neck or people to report to. It's kind of like you can just make what you want to make and see how to fine tune it better for next time, or reshoot it if you need to reshoot it, or there's a lot more freedom, there's a lot more ability, there's a lot more space to move around. So I think it's again, that experience, like the Oats stuff was really reinvigorating for me on a lot of levels. The audition for that was bananas. It was like,
I don't remember. Like, okay, wait.
It was
what were you?
Crazy.
What did you do?
It was crazy. So we were with.
I seem to like. It looks like the pattern that is emerging is that I require absolutely ridiculous auditions. Like, it's like a strange pattern.
And you don't remember anything ever.
Yeah, exactly.
How convenient.
Yeah, precisely.
No, it was so Chris and Kara in Vancouver were doing these sessions with like a handful of people. They were putting about 5 or 6 people in a room together at the same time. And we were all sort of loosely running these scenes and like switching the roles in the scenes. And
actually a good way to figure out like real crazy improv though.
Yeah, totally. And it was really improv heavy, which I was like shaking in me boots about. I was like, forget it. I'm out. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to do it. I was so scared. And it was the most fun. Like we were there for hours. I think we were there for like 4 hours or something insane. Like it felt like it was an all day long affair. And we just kept sort of switching everything up, switching up the scenes, switching up the roles, going in and out, repairing with everybody. And it was some of the hardest and most fun work like I'd done. And that was just the audition. So when Oates came about proper, I was really excited because I was like, okay, if that's half of what it could be, then this is just going to be a whole lot of fun. And it was exactly that. Like we started, I think, Neill, we started with Cooking with Bill. Do you remember?
It feels like it was Cooking with Bill. Yeah.
Cooking with Bill. And then
that would be correct because that's exactly the order it would have gone in. I actually became vegan from Cooking with Bill for a month or two because of that tripe like bucket that they dumped out.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? Sabina and Rich like put that bucket of actual pork cut-offs or whatever, or organs, whatever the hell it was, in that tin tray. And it took me a long time to recover from that.
Hungry for breakfast?
Will never go away.
No, it was I hope that we released that one. That one is out, I think. But it's man, that show is crazy. But when Alec, I don't know if it's Carly or Alec, but one of them takes this like meat tray out at the end, which is meant to be in a machine that only makes vegetarian dinners. And there was nothing fake about it. It was completely like, like the first rule of any sort of practical effect is if you can do it for real, you should always do it for real.
Yeah.
Like even Ridley, I think with Alien, with the egg in Alien, like a lot of that flesh in there is stuff that they went to the butcher to get, instead of the SFX department. So the small SFX department that we had, which was basically production design, was Rich and Sabina. Rich Simpson is the production designer. Sabina went and got this like bucket from the butchery of, organs that they didn't want. And also pork blood, probably. There's a bunch of blood. So that got dumped into the pan, which then got put into the machine. And it was tough going being around that.
It was so aromatic.
Yeah.
And beyond that, like I actually think it was a biohazard. Like it was definitely biohazard. Yeah. Like
it was like one of those things where it's like, oh, that was probably not legal. Again,
yeah.
Like in terms of the making of a film, like I'm not sure that was legal. But yeah, it was a biohazard.
but like Mark, this is like case in point. This is it, right? Like Neill has the same crew around, like the same players are around. It makes for a really, really coherent environment to work in. And when that stuff's taken care of, like when all the kind of, all the things that could go wrong with wild cards or whatever, when they are intact, it's like it's more than half the battle, because then you just have the ability and the trust and the, again, just the confidence to.
The stuff is always going to go wrong. I mean, it's like filmmaking is just a process of sort of trying to deal with day-to-day things that don't work. It's just constant problems.
And obviously it's really important because a lot of the listeners today will be now hearing the news. They would have seen the trailer about Demonic, and it was really interesting to hear how Neill sent you the script and a few pages and got the idea over email. You probably weren't expecting that email to come through because pandemic and COVID and everything else, and the world had currently gone absolutely insane. So when you got this email and you could see that there was this secret project that no one was going to know about. What was your first kind of thoughts? Were you kind of just in shock, thinking, oh my God, it's been a few years, we're now getting back on, we're going to be doing something like the Paranormal Activity sort of style?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, all of what you just said, for sure. I mean, it was pre-pandemic. It was just past New Year's, but I was in Australia at the time, like living in the wildfires that were going on in the 2019-2020 season. And it was so intense. And so we were here, and it was just after New Year's, and I woke up to that email from Neill, and I was just like, yes, like, that's amazing. Of course. And I think actually, Neill, I think one of your questions to me in the email was something along the lines of, how are you at improv?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think when AGC, because just to be clear, like initially it was totally self-financed by my brother and I.
Yes.
At our small company, which is Stability. And then AGC, they were financing another film that I was working on that did stop when the pandemic began, found out about it, and they doubled our budget. And I think that they gave us slightly more than double. Like, they gave us slightly more than what my brother and I put in. And what that did, I think, was it took us out of the realm of found footage into the realm of more structured, traditional narrative in the way that it's shot. And hilariously, it's actually the most restrained and controlled film that I've worked on. It's also hilarious that for a low budget horror film, it has 16 minutes of computer graphics, which is also mental. But so the improv question is totally correct, and how it began, and in alignment with very much of a paranormal activity approach to making it.
But then the pandemic happened. And then I think the next email I got from Neill was maybe like a week after the shutdown. And you said something along the lines of, now that the world's shut down, I want to make this film more than ever.
Yeah.
And I said, great. If you can figure out how, then like, I'm in. And then I think the first draft came through maybe like late April, I feel. And then we were shooting by early July.
Yeah.
And it was just really the, figuring out how to travel people, how to operate a film set with COVID protocols,
which was still super early on, because the film had like 8 or 9 months of VFX. So a lot of movies that shot after us came out way before this film came out. So we were shooting it so early that there were things that we obviously knew we had to do. And I guess the union and people were telling production like how they thought we should do things. But even there was conflicting information on what should happen. And it was nowhere near as structured and locked down as it is now. I mean, it's a totally different environment now.
Totally.
So, yeah.
And one of the things that really stood out about this is obviously the way that you kept it under wraps, and the fact that you went off and was it correct that you filmed in Canada the whole time, and there was no leak, there was no exclusive shots that you get from people on their phones anymore on Twitter, and you can see most of the new films now that are coming out from the big studios because someone is walking past getting that photo of the final scene.
I think for that to happen though, it's got to be based on IP that people know, right?
Yeah.
People, like, the level of curiosity is based only on stuff that has like a really long track record of established IP.
Yeah.
And also we weren't necessarily actively trying to keep anything secret. I mean, in the sense that it was just smaller, so there was less noise about it. It was, we were just able to go off and do it without being bothered, really.
And I think to that point too, like, so many of us knew one another that like it was just, again, there was just sort of this implicit understanding that we're making this film. It's during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. It's small in terms of, we had a smaller crew, a smaller cast, and as you say, like, there just wasn't that much noise. Like, everyone sort of had this tacit, like, understanding that we're not, like, none of us are influencers. I mean, not in the traditional sense of the word, if there is even a traditional sense of that word, but but none of us, we all just wanted to make the film. We all just wanted to make it the best we can make it work, and focus on that, and the other stuff would figure itself out.
It's actually kind of interesting because it was pretty fun to shoot, but I mean, for the subject matter being, the tone of it being dark, it's kind of a weird one, because the whole time, everything that we were doing was definitely aimed at just having this brooding tension that was simmering the whole time. And that's what happened when the cameras were rolling, but it didn't necessarily feel that way when they weren't rolling, which is cool. And it wasn't, because sometimes it can just feel different, but like, it was a pretty fun shoot.
Oh, for sure.
And maybe that's because it was so small. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And that there, again, weren't too many people that had, outside eyes on it, or
some other agenda.
Yeah.
Some other agenda other than making the film.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it was insular in that sense, which was very cool. But also, I mean, really fun. Like, one of the craziest takeaways for me was that we could be, like, rolling on the floor laughing, and then shooting the most, like, horrendous, treacherous, emotional scene, and truly it was, like, that easy to swing back and forth, because it was a group of people that had enough alignment that there was just no, it was so unfettered in that sense. It was so easy. And for me too, like, a big thing, I think, like, I've learned how to really, like, protect myself. So, like, when I have to open up and be vulnerable in scenes, it can be a tough ask for me, because I really want to feel like I am safe, or I really want to feel like I can trust. And in this situation, when you're working with friends, it's the best, because it's like, that's taken care of. You don't have to worry about any of that. Now you can just, like, focus on what are you trying to say? What are you trying to do? What's the purpose? What's the motivation? How are you going to get there? And in this case, it was so mind blowing, because I've never experienced anything like it. Like, typically, I'm listening to sad music, or, like, chain smoking, or, like, doing something ridiculous to try to hurt myself in order to get into an emotional place. And, like, in this, it was like, let me try it. Like, I was, like, tap dancing. Let me try this joke on for size and see if that's funny. And then, like, cut to tears.
That's surreal. Like, I want to.
Yeah, the performance is like emotional and moving and somber, and then it's, like, not like that when we're.
I mean, truly, Mark, I was a clown on set, like an actual clown. I just was missing the makeup.
Please tell me, Neill, you've got loads of behind the scenes footage that we'll get on the Blu-ray one day or something, that we can see all this, where you're sitting there.
I mean, all of the behind the scenes footage is, like, black and white 8mm with no sound. Other than people's cell phones, which there could be some good stuff. Yeah.
And Neill, obviously for you working on this, it was a completely different genre for you, with lots of different subgenres. And was that really exciting? Did it feel like every day was just trying new things, especially with we'll go into the technology shortly, with the volumetric capture, I think, is that the correct term for it?
Yeah.
Yes. But before that, going into these subgenres and trying new things and working, it still feels like a found footage film at times, even though it hasn't got the handy cam and the little annoying little red light in the corner and same record. But did it feel completely new? And I suppose, was it very fresh for you? Was it always a new challenge every day?
Yeah, no, it was definitely fresh for me. I mean, usually everything that I do has some kind of satirical or quirky weirdness about it. And this has zero of that. It's 100% dead straight in every single regard. So, it's a subtle shift, but in reality, it's actually very different. To go into filmmaking approaches that differ, maybe not to the audience that much, but to the filmmaker. It's like you really are questioning each thing that you're doing. So the things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to have a sense of dread the whole time. The shot choices and the lighting choices and the editorial pace and just like everything that I was trying to do was based on a feeling of unease and some sort of simmering tension. And everything was based on that. So I was 100% aware of that all the time. And it was definitely unlike stuff I had done before. I guess the closest stuff, weirdly, would be Oates when you look at Firebase and you look at Raqqa, but they're still they're fantastical in a way that you're sort of, there's still an element of fun, even though that sounds weird with aliens invading Earth. There's a genre element to those pieces that Demonic doesn't have. Like Demonic is just straight up, dead serious. So yeah, that was a total challenge and a total different approach. So very rock steady camera motion, and everything was about the lighting being as naturalistic as possible. Which Byron knows all about that. Byron is the DP, and DPs always want stuff to be light so that you can grade it down in post. So that the image is protected. And I think that what happens when you do that is that you lose something inherently that just isn't as cool as a single flashlight illuminating a scene. And it's like, I don't care what's in the black because it's meant to be dark. I'm not going to raise the levels. I don't want to see what's in there. So we would go back and forward with that a lot.
Like comic book level hero and villain battles about the light.
Daily. Yeah.
Daily. But it was very good.
Are you still talking now? Or are you having a bit of a timeout where you're like, look, we're not going to talk?
No. We're still buds. Yeah, no, he's all good. And I mean, it works out fine. It worked out fine. It was funny though, like occasionally he would be it would just be beyond his comfort zone. Like usually it would be on the edge of the comfort zone and he would like accept it. But there would be the occasional one where he'd come up to me and he's like, I really think that we may have made a mistake. It's like that kind of vibe. And then that you're onto something good. Like once you start getting into that zone, that you're in the zone that it should be in.
And one of the things that stood out for me, and I think this is the thing that will get people talking, is this technology of the volumetric capture. And Carly, what was it like working with all these cameras and this? I know it's not a completely brand new technology, but I've never seen anything like it on screen. The way it captures me, and without the pun of the capture, but the way it drew me in and the way it looked is just mind blowing. And I was just sitting there as a geek thinking, how's Neill pulled this off? How's he made this happen? How's it look like this? But to be involved in it, and it must be very demanding and quite challenging to be working with this technology.
Yeah, that's incredibly insightful, Mark. It was so cool and unique, and for me, like way above my comprehension. I remember Neill sent me a YouTube video of what the technology was, and I watched this video going like, cool, I do not understand it, but it looks great, and I can't wait to be that geometric shape on screen. And then when we got to the volcap stuff, which was toward the end of our shoot,
there was actually a really big break between.
There was actually at least a couple weeks or something from the time that we stopped shooting to when we did the volcap. And when we got into the studio where we were doing this, that was my first time really seeing it. On Adam, that Neill and I had done together, we'd done sort of a version using some of the same technology, like photogrammetry was used, and we'd used motion capture, and we used facial capture, which was the first time that I'd experienced that, which was very strange because you like could not move your face. You're in this, like, you're sort of locked in a grid, and all of your emotions have to be cast, but like immovable. You can't move anything. So it was a very strange experience.
I would never do that process again. Like that, Adam specifically was hyper difficult, but volcap for this film was also not easy.
Yeah. And that was, so we got into the space, and it was, a 5-meter space with 200, how many? 260?
Yeah, they were like, 260, I think.
260 cameras all around, like a million hard drives all around, bright lights. You're in like a metal cage. So to get back to your question, Mark, like it was.
But there's one more layer though. There's one more layer because Carly's describing like the. I mean, it should actually be a hemisphere, but it was more like a cage. It was like a prison cell. But there was, because resolution drops off. It squares itself when it drops off. It's exponential in its drop off. So like 1 foot away from you is 4 times less resolution when it's 2 feet away. Not twice, right? And then 8, and then 16. So to combat that, we had these small other mobile hemispheres that was like an additional prison cage that would get rolled in super close to the actors. So they were in a larger cage, and then there was this other like mini cage that it was. I mean, I'm surprised I'm surprised it worked at all. Actually, it was so difficult to shoot on.
So this was exactly what Neill just said. It was so like synthetic, like the environment was so, or just inorganic and technological and awkward. And there was so much there was so many wires buzzing and there was all of that kind of noise. So what was really interesting is that we shot like some of the more emotional content in Volcap. So you're doing some of the, what needs to be sort of like elemental or biological or like natural emoting in this hyper synthetic environment. So that was, I think, the biggest trip for me was figuring out how to connect to that like emotional life, because there was just so much technological noise like around. So it was really interesting. But what was cool about that is that what's happening to Carly in the film is this very like out of body, out of world feeling. So it kind of was half the battle for me, because like I wasn't supposed to be comfortable. I wasn't supposed to be connected. I wasn't supposed to understand what the space was that I was in. So that was interesting.
I want to know what
it was a hard environment.
Yeah, what's it like for you on the other side of the camera, seeing all this happening and working with this? It must be quite challenging because you're wanting this performance on screen, but you've got so much to rely on around you, all those cameras, like you said, all the hard drives, all the cable, everything. It must be, were you sitting there thinking, I really hope this is going to be worth it in the end?
That's an interesting question. No, I definitely knew it would be worth it. I mean, I knew I had a pretty good idea of what we would end up with, because we done tests prior to that with Tobias and with his company, which was volumetric capture systems. Yeah. And so I kind of knew what to expect, but I did feel for Carly and Natalie because of how crazy the environment was. I mean, it really was. It's like it was difficult to ask. There was also a whole mathematical component to it as well, where if a person moves 50 meters across a plane, across a field, and your capture area is 5 meters, you obviously have to stitch together 10 separate walk cycles. So, and we had a set in the movie. The audience looking at the movie will see something that looks either organic, or if it was a sanitarium, is semi-organic in the way that it's laid out, which means we had to do an aerial shot of the location and then draw circles or squares for the size of our capture area as little dots of where the characters would walk. And the sort of screen direction of which way they're going and stuff has to correspond exactly with a 3-dimensional model, which is the photogrammetry Carly's talking about, that we gathered from real sets. So it's quite, there's an actual like math component to it, which is, you know, you're doing that, and then there's also the performance element, and it's super synthetic. So the whole thing was kind of quite insane, but the result is pretty cool though, because I think in you know, at 5 or 10 years from now, VolCap is probably going to be pretty common, because of as soon as the resolution starts dialing into a place where you can see individual hairs and stuff, it's like, I don't know why you would shoot with normal cameras. So, but the question that you were asking though, where I was sitting back behind, you know, I didn't, by the way, I didn't really have a camera that I was looking at. I had a reference camera.
Yeah.
Because there's 260 other cameras that just get used into making one 3D version of Carly.
Yeah.
So every part of it was just a bit unusual and a bit weird.
Do you want to use it again? Are you straight away like on the next film? You're like, I want to use it, or are you just kind of thinking take a break from it for a while and then, like you said, wait for the resolution to get better and then use it again?
I don't think that I can use it again, in the sense that the only way that I could think how to use it, like the email that Carly's talking about, when I first wanted to do something, one of the puzzle pieces, because normally what you do is, like, I have a script right now for a project that I think I'm doing after Demonic, theoretically, right? Which is a science fiction script. And it's like, you just write the script, and then the budget, you look at what the budget is.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this with the, and everything that is in the script, we have to go out and we have to build, or we have to, everything has to conform to the narrative of the script. And this film was done the other way around. So one of the puzzle pieces that I knew I wanted to use was volumetric capture, and volumetric capture running in a video game engine, which in this case was Unity.
Yeah.
So the reason I don't think I can use it again is because the technology is so nascent and so glitchy that the only way you can use it is to write it into a film in a way that the glitches and the prototype nature of it are embedded into the narrative.
Yeah.
So you see what I mean? So it's a little bit weird.
It's perfect for Demonic, but then it would.
Yeah, it was
anything else.
Was,
it's like it's made for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was designed with that in mind. But I mean, something like, if you think of the Avatar movies, something like Avatar would be the perfect usage of VolCap when it's at a resolution that rivals film cameras, because you could just have your three-dimensional actor in hair and makeup and costume, and like it's basically like a three-dimensional play, and you take them and drop them into Pandora, you know, once Weta Digital's built all of the wildlife in the Avatar jungle, and now you can film your photoreal actor from any perspective, the way that James Cameron would have done with all of the other stuff in Pandora. But the way that it's made is that he's locked into the only angle shot by two stereoscopic cameras, and that's the only option he has. So it'll when it starts doing that, it means you can put actors anywhere, and then, you know, it'll really open up.
It'll be the year 2065. Avatar 6 will be coming out the cinema, and finally we'll be quoting this podcast saying, look, James Cameron is now doing this for the latest.
I mean, if anyone pushes VolCap to the point where it's like rivaling 8K cameras, it'll be James Cameron. So I'd be first in line.
Incredible. And Carly, when this had all been processed, it had all been run down, all finished and everything, and the final render had been done, and you got to see this technology in the truest form where it was ready to be shown to the world, what was your feeling of seeing it? Obviously, knowing you've gone through all this, and I mean this nicely, torture at times, because it must be just hearing about it now from Neill. I'm just imagining someone with a calculator in the background and all this paperwork and spreadsheets trying to work out the mathematics, but it just sounds mind-blowing. So to see it, was it all, you know, it must have been so worth it in the end.
Yeah, I mean, so you're asking if I watch my own work? Is that what you're asking?
Do you know, I did this question once with Corey Feldman. He said, I never watched my work back. And I was like, oh, okay, well, forget that then. But you must have watched Demonic back and then seen it and thought, well, that's why it all happened.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, I had utmost faith that this was going to work out, you know, to the T that Neill wanted it to work out. And when I did start to see some of the images from the VolCap world in particular, it's so exciting. It's just like, it makes me feel gleeful to go like, it's cool. It's visually entrancing, and it's interesting, and it's a departure, especially in this relatively lo-fi, as Neill said, like straight, film that has sort of like a very even tone to it. It's like you get transported into this other world that is, to me, just really exciting. It's exciting to see films trying to do something different. And again, like I mean, that's to Neill's credit. Like it's very generous, I think, to moviegoers, to an audience, to be able to deliver something that's just different, and cause some sort of reaction. Ambivalence is not what we're going for. So
indifference.
Yeah.
Carly, did I tell you my Corey Feldman thing, my story? Did I tell you that?
No, but I would love to hear it.
Because Mark just brought up Corey Feldman, but this is quite bizarre. So because I don't live in Vancouver anymore, but when we lived in Vancouver, we had a house that's in this neighborhood called I think it was under Kerrisdale, but it was basically Kerrisdale. And when we bought the house, a lot of people, like our neighbors and stuff, kept saying to us, like, "Oh, you bought the two Corey's house." And I was like, what the hell does that mean? I at first I just thought like I misheard them or something. And then like years later, someone sent me Corey Haim and Corey Feldman fighting in my kitchen. And the show, I bought the house that was the show for the two Coreys. So then it was like, I watched a bunch of the reality show that was occurring in all of the rooms that we lived in.
Jesus.
It was really, really weird, actually. Yeah.
They shot the two Coreys reality show in Vancouver. That's also mind-blowing.
In my house.
In your house, in your own house. That's crazy.
It's so weird.
Is it like one of those the Osborne sort of style, so you could see every room in the house and they're just following each other? Oh my God.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a really surreal thing. And just because I didn't really know what people were talking about initially. I didn't know they were referring to a reality TV show. They just called it the two Coreys house.
Right.
Yeah. It's quite strange.
20 feet from stardom, Neill.
I was just sitting here then listening and thinking, Carly, when you go to your next project and you start working on something, and I mean this with full respect, it's going to seem a little bit dull because you're not going to have 260 cameras around you. You're not going to be having all this different technology. And it must be a bit odd knowing that the next film or the next TV show you're going to be working on, it's going to be just straightforward back to normal process.
But that is not, I mean, like all of the technological stuff should be in the background though. I mean, it's like, it's it really just is it's only really the acting and the script that exist, I guess. It's like everything else is just fluff around the edges.
What is next for you, Carly? What are you up to next? Are you allowed to talk at this point, or is there stuff that you can't talk about?
No, not at all. I was just going to say that I just recently did a small role in Joe Coy's feature film called Easter Sunday that Amblin is doing. Nice. And why that was interesting was, one, it was a studio film, and two, it was a comedy. And you can have all the hard drives and cameras and prison cages and bright lights and all the rest. There is nothing harder than keeping up with comedic giants, or trying to, I should say, not even keeping up, just trying to just keep pace with these, I mean, like titans of comedy. And it was a very, very cool thing to be a part of that movie, and a lot of fun. And I think to that point, I appreciate that you have faith that there will be a next time for me, Mark. I appreciate that. And I hope for the same.
Yeah, I'm also curious, like what stuff will, what will be the next? It should be like an Oates piece, I think.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing and this is what I was going to say. Ultimately, I actually really like flipping the switch.
Yeah. And
like kind of being a pendulum in that sense, because there's nothing more like riveting and like utterly horrifying than going like, I don't know what's going to happen. And and in this case, I'd never done a horror film before. So it was all sorts of that. Like I had no idea how it was going to be, what mental state I needed to be in. Ultimately, I just needed to put on my clown hat, as aforementioned, but it was, but you just never know. And then going from, demonic to, effectively Easter Sunday was like such a change of pace too, and that kind of like workout is really interesting. And it just, becomes blatantly clear that I need to keep up my fitness, because it was like, it is such a change. But I like that, and I think it's also I think it's also important to just like flip the switch so that people don't get too comfortable with expecting one thing from you, and I don't know, Neill, if you can relate to that as well, but it's like, that to me is kind of, imperative to like having fun and stretching and making.
I totally agree. Like shooting something like God or Cooking with Bill is like, a breath of fresh air that I love that kind of just stepping outside of whatever people think is normal from you as an artist.
We're still waiting for that romantic comedy from you, Neill.
A romantic comedy with an edge, like with just a slight twist to it. Yeah, we there's definitely it's something to do with oats. I think that we should do next, because there's a bunch of it, and it would definitely have some comedic vibe to it for sure. Yeah.
Oh, you're teasing everyone now, and everyone's listening and re-quoting this, and I'm like, Neil's not giving us much. He's just saying oats, but so we are going to get some more oats in the near future.
I think so.
Think. Won't say yes.
It's too risky to say yes.
No, that's fair. And Neill, people will say, is District 10 happening? I'm going to put you on the spot. Is it official yet? Are you allowed to say any more? Or
it's not official.
No, you're sitting there writing still.
I also, Alien and District 10, and like there's these projects that are always the projects that people talk to me about, and I feel like unless I'm actually working on them or on whatever movie it is, I just want to talk about projects that aren't happening less. Of course. Yeah.
But you did say earlier today that you're writing some sort of sci-fi thing, and I was thinking, I wonder what that is.
We are writing District 10, but it's like it's a slow process. But that's not the project I was referring to.
Are you allowed to talk anything about the project that you are working on?
No.
Will you come back on and make a fourth podcast when you are?
Yeah, sure.
At it?
For sure.
And Carly, one thing that we do have is a lot of listeners that are wanting to get into acting and getting to the film industry. And this is a question I put out to everyone. So I've had Anthony Hopkins, Mads Mikkelsen, Kevin Smith, all these sort of actors. And I asked them the question because I know a lot of people at film school or at university love finding out from people. What advice do you give to people that are trying to be like yourself, get out there, make a name for yourself? You've done so well. It happened very quickly for you. But what advice do you give to those people that probably are really struggling or trying to bounce back from auditions and get seen in a world that is so hard to be seen in?
Sure. This is, just on the heels of what Neill just said and did with his very curt no. I'm gonna say something that's probably the shittest advice ever. But what I think that we're so conditioned to hearing no as actors, like just from the acting side, we're so conditioned to hearing no. You get a lot more no's than you get yeses. There's a lot of rejection. Many more auditions happen than roles booked. And we're so conditioned to hearing no. So that when we hear yes, we jump and sort of almost mindlessly or blindly jump toward that yes. And I think this is not necessarily like straight away, of course, but like as you get into it, I think there is a lot of self-respect and confidence and awareness in utilizing the no's strategically and having the ability to stand up for yourself and say, like, that's not what I want to put out there, or that's not what I want to do. But this is, of course, that's not good advice for someone just starting out. I think, like, to me, I feel like the most critical thing is being authentically yourself.
Yeah.
It is so typical and usual to start to bend to other people's desires or molds or whims. And if you start losing your own authenticity or your own personality, I think that's sort of tantamount to having a short career, because I really believe that more than anything, if by trying to please everyone, you please no one, really. Mm-hmm. So I think to me, it's really important to be yourself, be who you are. There's a lot of chat these days about, like, branding, at which, to me, I don't align with that. I'm like, no. What does that mean? Like, I don't get that. It doesn't. And again, I make a lot of mistakes. I am not the model of how to be an actor by any stretch, by any means. But I do know that if I start to be a brand, I'm going to stop being myself.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is inherently, like, conflicting. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that answers.
Agreed.
No, it's amazing. It's one of the most heartfelt answers I think I've had in 5 years of podcasting. I could tell every word you meant, and it's true. And I was sitting there thinking, your line about not pleasing everyone and everything, it's so easy to fall into that trap where you just adapt and become, I'll do this to be this person, and I'll make sure I fit in with that person. And ultimately, the biggest kind of regret will be that you will end up not even remembering who the real you is.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And what about you, Neill? I mean, that's quite a big one to follow up on, but what would you say for people that want to be behind the camera and direct and want to get their stuff seen? Because obviously with Instagram and Twitter and YouTube, it's great to get your work out there, but what advice do you give to those young filmmakers that want to be the next Neill Blomkamp and, get this? But it's
they
true.
Should be careful. Just make sure that they don't direct Chappie. I mean, it's similar to Carly's answer in the sense that I think the more that you are clear about what you want to do and what you are aiming towards, have a very clear vision of what you're aiming towards, the higher the chance of you reaching that goal, because it's going to be more difficult for other people to knock you off course.
Yeah.
And I see a lot, you see people that have an idea of what they want to do, and then it's kind of a little bit like what Carly was saying. You get offered something, right? You get offered this film, or you get offered that film, or you get offered an opportunity that maybe isn't in film. Something begins to chew away at the vision that you have for yourself. And I think that the stronger that you can hold that course and just stay on the rails, the higher the possibility of you actually getting there. So it sounds obvious, but it's not obvious when you're going through the process, because there's 100 different avenues to get there, and it's not clear what the right road is. But I think if you just kind of focus on the original goal and clear all of the clutter and the noise out from inside your head from other people speaking to you, it'll become clearer to see what it is and just stick to it. So it's like, don't do things for money. Don't do things for like it should be difficult. It's probably difficult to get to where you want to go, and stick with it.
It's kind of easier said than done at times, isn't it? Because you need that kind of space and that mindset to be able to take that step back and analyze what's going on and the questions that are being asked of you and the decisions that are going to be made. Sometimes it's just so easy to be caught up.
I don't know if it's a step back thing. Like, I don't know if it's a perspective thing. It's more like the firmer you are about what you want to do, the more it's going to be difficult for someone to offer you something that could be more lucrative or could get you a different form of gratification that isn't on the road to where you're going. And then the next time you say yes to that, and the next time you say yes to it, like 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, like you're nowhere in alignment with what your true instinct is and what your true goal is. So sometimes it's just easier to say yes to stuff. And you know, I mean, I'm not really being that clear. I'm being more philosophical, but it does apply, I think.
Definitely.
And the other thing also, and this is also, it's tied to the same answer. The other thing is stop talking. Like if you want to be a filmmaker, stop talking about it and get a camera and shoot stuff like often. It doesn't matter what the budget level is. When I was working in visual effects or animation, I used all of my own money to shoot stuff. I'd like work in the morning and then I'd shoot at night with like, I could never pay rent, you know? So you have to continuously do what it is you're trying to do. You can't just like hang out in coffee shops and say that you want to do it. It doesn't make sense.
It's really weird because I'm on the verge of quitting my job, which is the office job 9 to 5, to do the podcast full time, because it's just what I get the most from. I enjoy it. But in this world, it's difficult to get the balance because no one wants to pay for podcasts. But whenever I ask this question, a lot of the answers are the same. Like, you just need to do it. You just need to take that jump. You just need to believe in it. And then every week I'm sitting here editing that same answer or listening back of that feedback, and I never act on it. And I'm so close to doing it. I'm at that point now where I'm like, I want to do it, because then I don't think I'll ever stop. I think even if I'm just eating pot noodle and just about making rent, it won't matter because I'm getting to talk and do stuff like this on a daily basis.
Yeah. What's your job that you do?
Which is very different to what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, interesting.
Right.
That is interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I certainly don't know enough about the economics of like how podcasting works, but I think, I mean, anyone who works in the realm of creativity faces this problem, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's just not, it's at war with economics. Like art, any form of art is at war with economics. And that's part of the trap as well. You know, the trap is that you need to earn money. I mean, what I did, and it may not be applicable to you, but it was like, I just kept scaling my hours back. Till eventually I got it down to 2 days a week. And then finally I was on a beach in South Africa and I phoned my like supervisor and I was like, I'm going to go ahead and just drop it to 1 day a week. And he was like, yeah, that's kind of not going to work for us.
Don't bother, Neill.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened. And I just stayed on the beach in South Africa and thought a bit. And then I moved into directing, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. I'm cutting back and I'm doing exactly that. I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I'll just do a couple of days and then I'll just, you know, you can live on what you earn. And if I'm doing something I enjoy and I'm passionate about, then I won't be loathing getting up and having to do something that just doesn't interest me and could be 9 hours of doing other stuff. So it's inspiring hearing you both kind of gone on that journey and you've done it. And I hope one day I can join you in that club.
Now, is there any way that your boss could hear this?
Yeah.
I was thinking, how am I going to edit around this to make it sound like a natural answer and say, like, so Mark, what do you do? I work in.
You should just beep it out, man. Just beep it out so it has like an organic feel to it.
Yeah, that's what I'll do.
That's actually kind of cool. It'll be sort of mysterious.
I will do that. We'll keep it going. Carly, this is the final question. I understand what time we're all in, and it's late for you, Neill, and it's really early here. And Carly, I think it's around the middle of the day for you.
5:20 p.m.
What we do on the podcast to make it very different is every single guest, and we're on episode 151. Each guest gets to choose the outro piece of music. So on Neill's episode, he got to choose Sepultura as his outro music, which was awesome to listen back and edit in because I love that track anyway. Roots, which is just one of the heaviest tracks out there. Max Cavalera is a genius. So to put you on the spot, what we do is we ask every guest to choose the music. It can be a piece of music from a film, a score, a song you love, a song that just means a lot to you personally, but it can only be one song and it can be no time to think about it. I want the one that comes to your heart and your head when I ask the question.
It's a bit thematic with the film, with the Vatican angle, but I'm going to go with Personal Jesus by Depeche Mode.
I love that track.
Depeche Mode's awesome.
Guys, I want to say a huge thank you for coming on the podcast. Neill, I know you've made this happen. And when I was dealing with managers and agents and everyone. It was so good of you to make the last interview happen. When we had 20 minutes, I was so thrilled, but at the same time I was like, we're not even going to scratch the surface of Demonic. You know, it's going to be the hi, I'm Mark, how are you? And then you've got someone in the corner saying 10 minutes left. So I'm really, really grateful for you making this happen today.
Yeah, no sweat, man. Yeah, and thanks to you.
And hell of a lot. And Carly, coming on and getting to know you, and already I can tell that we're going to do future episodes and get you back on, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you on. I can't wait for people to hear your advice and see the film, and then what you went through for that film. And I'm not just saying this because you're here. It's one of the performances of the year. I can't wait to people at Fright Fest will be reviewing it. It's going to be all over Twitter and Facebook in a couple of weeks, and people aren't going to stop talking about your performance. It's unbelievable.
What a beautifully kind thing to say. Thank you, Mark. And thanks for having me here. And I'd love to come back if it means that you're still podcasting, because you're damn good at it.
I'll be there eating pot noodle. You'll see me homeless on the side of the street, but I'll be like, I did it, guys.
You know what? At least you won't wonder.
Exactly.
At least you've already seen
freezing cold and be really ill, but hey, I won't be wondering.
That's it.
Awesome.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Mark. Thank you guys for making this work. I know it's so bananas. We have like such a weird triangulation of the world right now, but it's I'm happy we could make it.
I was worried that when I hit connect that one of you would be an hour out and I hadn't done something right, or I'd done something wrong. And then Neill,
no, it worked out. I would have actually got the day wrong.
Yeah.
It was like, no, dude, it's today. So
I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning just for some random reason, checked my phone. It was like, Neil's like, so is this tomorrow? I'm like, no, I'm getting up in 5 hours time. I've got my alarm set. In my head, I'm still worrying about this interview. And I'm like, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep. And Neil's like, is it tomorrow? I'm like, well, it is for me, but it's not for you.
Yeah. It like raises deep philosophical concepts. Like even with relativity, it's like your hand is in a different time zone to your eyes. You know, it's like problematic, right? So you guys now we're all in the same day, I think. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys.
So nice to chat.
Bye, guys.
So there it is. There's my interview with me, Neill Blomkamp, and Carly Pope. It was such a pleasure to have Neill come back on the show, as the last special we did only a couple of weeks ago was very short. We had about 20 minutes. So to come back on and basically give me an hour and 20 minutes is a dream come true. And I'm really looking forward to you guys at home checking it out and now finding more about the process of the making behind Demonic. Carly, you're an incredible guest, and I loved you from the moment we started talking, and I really hope we can get you back on the show in the near future and again talk for longer. If you haven't seen the film Demonic right now, check it out. It's available on DVD and Blu-ray over the next few weeks, but also you can go and stream it on all the channels that you know of. And honestly, I'm not going to shy away and ignore that it's getting some very mixed reviews, but I'm on the plus side. I think it's great. I really enjoyed it, and it was everything that I'd expect from Neill Blomkamp during lockdown as a found footage style film. It's brilliant. If you're new to Mark and me and this is the first time you've listened, thanks for listening. There's another 160 plus episodes waiting for you right now on Amazon Music, Apple, Podomatic, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. I work really hard to get it on all the directories that I can, and I really hope you can find it easily and listen to some old episodes with various people from all different walks of life. If you want to support the podcast, all I ask is that you share the episode. You can do this really simply on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Most people I know have these accounts, and all you have to do is hit the share button, or post it on your stories on Instagram or on Facebook, share the link. It costs nothing to do and makes a huge difference and brings a whole new audience to the podcast. It's something I'm extremely grateful for, and every time I release an episode, I do see more and more people sharing it, so that's why I say this on the outro to every episode. If you've really enjoyed today's episode, you can support me on Patreon. On there you can sign up for as little as £1 a month. You're getting a minimum of 6 episodes every single month. Not only that, thanks to the amazing guys that support the podcast from Vice Press, who are easily the best poster company out there, and also Last Exit to Nowhere, my favourite t-shirt company. They give me a bundle of prizes every single month, and they're exclusive to my Patreons. The only way you get this is to subscribe, and you can be in a chance of winning some limited edition prints, posters that are no longer available, artist proofs. Not only that, some incredible t-shirts from Last Exit, and this is my way of saying thank you for supporting me. It's not going to slow down anytime soon. You had 6 episodes in September, and I'm going to try and beat that in October. There's some really intimate specials coming up, a whole range of guests, and it's only going to be a few days until you get a brand new episode. So until then, look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
Reach out, touch faith.
Reach out and touch faith.